Welcome to the Psychology World podcast. I'm Connor Whiteley, bringing you psychology news, articles, and other interesting psychology-related articles. Where I can find the podcast notes and more interesting psychology-related things, and you can get your free 8 psychology book box set at connorwhiteley.net. Now let's get on to the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 146 of the Psychology World podcast with me, Connor Whiteley. And today's episode is on 5 ways that psychology can change your life. And it's Friday the 22nd of April 2022 as I record this. So today's episode isn't actually so much about how psychology can actually change our lives per se, but it's more about what are the benefits of studying psychology, because after what's been going on in the news for the past few months, and especially this week in the UK, I really just wanted to focus on something that was not so much extremely positive, but something that was very, very positive. And to be honest, I have actually got quite a few positive things lined up. So I might also do a positive next week too, because we don't always want to be studying the darker side of human behaviour. So this is a great episode, and hopefully you'll enjoy it just as much as I did. So we're moving on to the psychology news section, moving from the British Psychological Society Researcher Digest. And the first one is actually quite funny, considering this is why I actually want to do a light-hearted episode today. So we tend to prefer political candidates with higher levels of education. Here's why. What makes us vote for particular candidates often goes beyond their politics. Research has suggested that our voting preferences can be influenced by our own self-identity, candidates' perceived beauty, and even the depth of their voice. I so badly want to comment, but I don't want to get into politics here. A newer study looks at another factor that could sway our choices: education. Writing in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin, Joan Van Norland and team find that people with low or high levels of intelligence both prefer more educated politicians, but the reasons for these preferences may be different for each group. And then the really interesting thing that the article then goes on to talk about is that highly educated participants of the study preferred highly educated politicians, and then what that might reflect is more of a in-group bias. So therefore, as university students, because we're quite highly educated, then we're more likely to pick other politicians. But then the lower educated group, which I think sounds so horrible, but I get what they're saying, is that they're more likely to actually pick for a higher educated person if that political candidate has a more of a conservative orientation, also known as more right-wing. So the second one is students with dark triad traits don't feel responsible for their own learning, making them more likely to cheat. Plagiarism and cheating are persistent problems in higher education. Recent work has consistently linked various forms of cheating to higher scores on the dark triad personality traits of psychopathy, Machiavellianism, love that word still, and narcissism, and also to stronger feelings of academic entitlement. Academic entitled students believe that they deserve special or better treatment than is typically given to others. This can involve a number of distinctively unappealing beliefs. Beliefs that the students deserve above average grades, no matter what effort they put in, that instructors should be at their beck and call, and that their assignments and that when their assignments are marked, everyday problems should be regarded as the reasons to put up their grade. Sound familiar? I can think of a number of academic friends who would immediately agree. Work to date has the dark triad and academic entitlement as distinct factors that link independently to academic misconduct. But the researchers behind the new study wondered if dark triad traits might in fact drive feelings of academic entitlement, which then drives misconduct. So the really interesting thing that I'm actually just going to comment on is that I have actually seen this though, and I can't actually believe it, because I'm actually so shocked though, because if we just take these unappealing beliefs. So the first one, which is about grades. Well, of course you should actually try and put in as much effort as you possibly can, just so you can get the better grade as possible. Because just because you put no effort in doesn't mean you're going to get a great grade. That's just silly. Right, and then the other one was instructors should be out there beck and call. No, because I sort of had a surface level understanding of this before my placement year. But as I'm finding in my placement year, I'm actually slightly surprised at the amount of rubbish that lecturers and other instructors actually have to deal with. Because I knew that they had to deal with quite a lot of extra stuff because I learned quite a bit during the strikes in my first year. But this placement year has definitely helped me to understand more though. So definitely instructors will never be actual beck and call. And also that's actually part of the point of their university. It's that you become independent learners. Of course, always email your instructors if you have a problem or if you need a bit of advice, but don't expect them to be actual beck and call. I can't believe people actually think that. And then the last one is though about everyday problems that should be regarded as reasons to up their grade. No, I wish it was the case. I really do, but no, it just doesn't work like that. And also, why should it? And I was going to do the final bit, but that sounds more like a podcast episode to me. So I think I will do a podcast episode on it, especially because in the UK we've got local elections in less than 2 weeks. So that actually might be quite a timely episode. Right, okay then. So I will definitely do that. So next week, the podcast episode will be on the psychology of voting. Oh, yeah, I'm actually quite looking forward to that. So that's enough of the psychology news update. So let's move on to the personal update. So we're moving on to the personal update. So this week I've been doing different bits and pieces. I've been chipping away more at the literature of the that I've been doing, but besides that, on another psychology front, I've not been doing too much, but I have received a political psychology text book from someone there because I do want to learn more about political psychology. So as much as at some point I will read about it and I do some more research into it. That should actually be really, really interesting. Aside from that, because it's the Easter holidays, and also because we had Easter last week, I've just been spending it with friends and family, and doing some other bits. So as always, I always love to hear your thoughts and feelings on today's episode. So you can always email me, connorwiley@connorwiley.net. You can always leave show notes at connorwiley.net/podcast. And you can always email me on Twitter at SciFiWiley. I always love to hear from all of you because it really helps make the podcast feel more like a conversation. And today's episode has been sponsored by Social Psychology, Guide to Social and Cultural Psychology, 3rd edition. And the reason why this is the sponsor for today's episode is that this is the one area of psychology that today's episode just keeps repeating. Because social psychology is the scientific study of social behaviour and all of our group processes, and degrees as we're talking about this, a more general side about how psychology can actually help us change our lives and actually improved it. And this is such a great area of psychology because it allows us to see how do our friendships form, how does prejudice, attitudes, persuasion, and so many other great areas of psychology and human behaviour, and even the larger problems in society actually work there. So, social psychology is just an absolute must to actually study, look at, and it's really, really interesting. So, that is Social Psychology, a guide to social and cultural psychology, 3rd edition. Available from all major ebook retailers, and you can get the paperback and the large print version from Amazon, local bookstore, and a local library if you request it. So that's enough for the personal update. So let's move on to the content part of today's episode. So we're moving on to the content part of today's episode. So we're going to be talking about 5 ways psychology can change your life. So this is just such a great episode that I really enjoyed writing about, and I actually do get quite passionate in quite a few bits. So I know that you're going to enjoy it. So what are these 5 ways? Helps us to understand ourselves and others. And there are 2 major reasons why I utterly love learning about psychology. And this is one of them, since learning about social, cognitive, another subfield of our psychology, it helps us to understand why people behave as they do, as well as why there are persistent problems in our society that are caused by a human behaviour. For example, because of social work psychology, we can understand how work groups impact our behaviour, cause us to do things we might never do alone, and how work groups can benefit us and our lives. Without psychology, none of this would be possible to know, and even if we didn't realise it, there will, or there have been times where we've been grateful for this knowledge. Additionally, it helps us to understand ourselves and why we do what we do. And I definitely think that this is an area of psychology that really does need to be researched a bit more. Since in social psychology, we know that our own self-knowledge is very, very rubbish. But there are plenty of things that we can understand and learn about ourselves for the better. Better though, that is definitely one of the great ways that psychology can help us understand goal setting and motivation. And this is a lot more of a social psychology topic, but I remember reading an entire chapter on the topic, and was it interesting at the time? No, it really wasn't. However, though, that's probably more because I am a very goal-orientated person. Because if I want to do something, then I make sure that I know how to get to it, and I really motivate myself to actually get to that goal. But yet, learning about goal setting and motivation behaviours are still very useful. It allows us to see how these behaviours actually work instead of some goal setting and motivational guru just telling people how they think it works in exchange for money, of course. So this is why I never understand people who talk about psychology has no real world uses, because even in this very simple example, a person can use psychology research to improve themselves by setting goals and increasing their motivation. Becoming a better parent. Now, when someone mentioned this to me, I was quite sceptical. I'm thinking, really? How does psychology help you to become a better parent? Of course, now I say that out loud, it seems really silly, but this is probably just because developmental psychology is not my favourite area, and it's not an area I would ever do for pleasure. Therefore, though, I really don't remember too much about the field, unless I have to, because of a book or an exam. But when I went back at my developmental psychology book, I do agree that because there are plenty of tips and the tricks people can find in developmental psychology literature. And I must actually confess myself though, because even though I don't look into the field too much, I still use the information from time to time though. Since I still remember about attachment theory, children using adults as a secure base, and when you get your own children, nephews, and more, you can really start to see everything that you've learned that come out into practice. And even now, I'm really surprised by that. Nephews and nieces are great. They are just great for psychology students. And one of the best things though is, of course, you don't need ethical approval where to watch them and also try a few experiments on them. Develops critical thinking skills. I definitely think that this is such an underrated skill that you develop in psychology, because this is a brilliant benefit of it. Since psychology is a science, and as scientists we need to critically evaluate sources, research and methodologies, so the field of psychology can always be improving and moving forwards. However, developing critical thinking skills is amazing for you personally, because as I wrote in Coates Psychology, it actually protects you from being influenced by a coat, as well as being able to critically think means that you can evaluate things that actively try to influence you in your everyday life, from politics to social media and friends and family. Critical thinking about things means that you can actually get past all of the persuasive techniques and understand what's really going on. And this is where bias comes in. Protecting ourselves and overcoming the bias. So I think if there was any reason to study psychology, this is the reason I think that, because this is what I love at psychology, because it really can help you in everyday life. Especially with, as we know from social psychology, our group discrimination, prejudice and in group favouritism, amongst other topics, are all major problems in the world that are caused by a human behaviour. Therefore, psychology allows us to become aware of these things. And sure, it does not make us immune to this, but it helps us to become more likely to catch ourselves, challenge these prejudice and discrimination, and it helps us to make the world a better place. In addition, my personal favourite that psychology has helped me to understand is the media bias, that amazing little area of forensic psychology that has helped me to understand how and why the media reports certain stories in certain ways, just because it helps them to get more viewers. Of course, I'm not talking about fake news here, but I am talking about the stories that are news. The news just has to report more because they're the most sensational stories. And thankfully, by learning psychology, I have understood how to overcome that bias and not necessarily fall for it. Conclusion: I will always love psychology and what it can allow us to learn, understand, and overcome in our world. And I really hope that you appreciate how psychology has benefited you too. And actually, something that I think I got to mention in the personal update is please tell me how you think that psychology has benefited you. Send me back an always email, tweet, or just to leave a comment in the show notes. I would love to hear how you think that psychology has benefited you. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode and that you got something out of it. If you know someone who would enjoy today's episode, then please share it with them. I'm always really grateful when you wonderful people help spread the word about the podcast. And definitely check out Social Psychology, a guide to social and cultural psychology, a third edition, available in all the usual workplaces. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see the show notes, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. And if you want a free 8-book psychology box set, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.